Hello and welcome to Wrestling at Random. I'm Jeremy Deemer.
And I am Adam Summers. You are in season 5 of Wrestling at Random, where the theme, you guessed it, is more professional wrestling than ever. Some 19,000 professional wrestling shows dumped into the randomizer, upwards of 60,000 hours of professional wrestling available to be randomly chosen for us to watch on any given week. This week, the randomizer is taking us back to, speaking for myself, and I believe for you as well, one of our favorite sweet spots. It is Mid-South Wrestling Television. This is one of the earliest episodes that we reviewed outside of on the bonus feed, where we had a pre-Mid-South TV show. This is the second Mid-South television episode available on WWE Network / Peacock as of the time of this recording. It is Mid-South TV from January 16th, 1982. And Jeremy, when the randomizer pulled this, I looked at the match list and I saw what one of the 3-man teams in a 6-man tag team feature match on this show was. I knew that this time the randomizer, it giveth, it did not taketh away. It gave us the right week of television here for once.
Yeah, I don't look at the lineups ahead of the show. I let the show wash over me. And when they ran down the lineup at the top of the show, I'm like, oh my gosh, did we get a solid episode of Mid-South TV? I was looking at how many episodes of Mid-South we reviewed over 5 seasons of this podcast. You might be shocked to know that this is only the second time in the free feed we've pulled, that the randomizer has pulled us an episode of Mid-South Television. Only the second time.
Insane. I feel like it's been at least twice that many over on the bonus feed, where our patrons, our intentionalizers, know our love of Mid-South. They know that this is the wrestling I grew up on, along with World Class, and they've given us some great episodes of Mid-South TV, including the classic Ric Flair, Ted DiBiase episode. I guess then the only other free feed episode we have is when the randomizer gave us the week. Was it the week before or the week after that classic episode? And we were so upset about that. And then an intentionalizer rectified that and picked the actual classic episode for us to watch. I can't believe this is only the second time the randomizer has chosen Mid-South for us to watch.
Yeah, over on our bonus feed, where we have an additional weekly show that we do over on the bonus feed, we've done 5 episodes of Mid-South Television over on the bonus feed. Here, this is our second trip. If you want to listen to the free feed, another episode of Mid-South, you'd have to go back to season 2, episode 16 to listen to that. If you want to listen to us talk
3+ seasons since we've had one.
If you want to hear us talk about Mid-South for those 5 other times, you got to sign up at the Patreon, patreon.com/wrestling at random. There for $5, it unlocks the entire back catalog. So not just those 5 episodes, but 160 episodes as of the time of this recording, all unlocked for you when you subscribed for the bonus content. So go ahead and support the show over there. And before we get into this episode, we like to start the show by giving a little history and context. What is Mid-South? We haven't talked about it in a while. So instead of me giving you the history, I'm going to go back to season 2, episode 16, and that version of me to give you a history. I'm going to drop that clip in right now. Mid-South Wrestling, promoted in Louisiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and parts of Texas. Bill Watts ran the promotion and was noted for producing award-winning television shows and drew many huge houses throughout the territory, particularly in 1984 when Bill Dundee was booking and Jim Duggan, Terry Taylor, the Rock and Roll Express, Magnum TA, the Midnight Express, Steve Williams, and Butch Reed were the headliners of the day. Business fell off over the next few years, partially due to the abysmal economic conditions in the region because of the decline of the oil business and partially because of changes within the wrestling business. After an attempt to follow the lead of Vince McMahon and Jim Crockett to turn Mid-South Wrestling into a national company called the Universal Wrestling Federation, when that failed, Watts sold his company to Jim Crockett Promotions in 1987. This show starts with Boyd Pierce and Bill Watts at the desk welcoming us to this episode of Mid-South from January 16th, 1982. This is season 2. So this is 1982. So if you're this is available in the back catalog of the WWE network, the Peacock or Netflix, wherever you're consuming your WWE content. This is where that Mid-South episode can be found. And they welcome us.
I believe it also can be found on YouTube after the fact. When I was looking to make the
GIF, I did see that. Yeah.
I saw that it was on YouTube. Would have liked to have watched it there because we would have had the non-dubbed entrance music, I assume, but wasn't going to go back and watch it a second time. But it's worth searching out if you don't have access.
I went back. No, because I went to the YouTube one when JYD came out to see if he to see if he came out to Another One Bites the Dust. But that was a previous overdub, so that had to have been from like one of the classics on demand or one of the other
24/7.
Mm-hmm. Because this one that also had a different overdub track to it.
Wow.
But we'll get to that in a little bit. They run down this card, and like I said at the top of the show, they ran down this lineup, and I was chomping at the bit. I'm like, get me this 6-man tag immediately. I want to see this match now. But they instead cut to the opening match.
Yeah, we'll go to the opening match. It's also noteworthy that Bill Watts is referenced by Boyd Pierce as the guest commentator here. So we aren't yet in the era of Bill Watts being on commentary each and every week. I assume we are in the era of this being Bill Watts' promotion. If you go back on the bonus feed, one of the recent episodes we've done, there was a 1978 episode of what would become Mid-South Wrestling, but it was still Leroy McGurk's promotion with Bill Watts as his second in command, and he did guest commentary on that show as well.
The opening match. The Monk from Parts Unknown taking on a young Brian Blair.
As young as Brian Blair can look. One of the things about early 80s Mid-South is everyone, for the most part, is either from another country or billed as being from another country, and they're like a wild man, or they have short brownish hair with a mustache, and they may be in their 20s, but they look no younger than 35 years old. Brian Blair obviously fits that. We had Brian Blair a few episodes ago on a UWF, not the UWF that came out of Mid-South, but the Herb Abrams UWF, and he looked no older there than he looked here in 1982. His opponent, the Monk, I was very disappointed, was not Friar Ferguson. No. He instead looks like a shrunken down version, but exactly facially like Eric Redbeard or whatever he was called in WWE.
That's exactly really what my notes say as well. Eric Rowan in WWE. Eric Redbeard.
Also, he had a short run in pro wrestling known as The Roof. Not a good run.
No. This match, grappling early by Blair, showing off his amateur wrestling abilities. Bill Watts talks about his plane. He's thanking the air traffic controllers who are apparently on strike.
This is always one of the best things at any Mid-South show is Bill Watts tangents, and we get a few of them. One of them innocent, one of them very pointed and mean-spirited a little bit later on. But yes, Bill Watts is, this starts off with Boyd Pierce saying that Bill Watts will have to leave at some point during the show due to commitments elsewhere. Boyd basically begs him to stay as long as he can because, as we've heard on later episodes of Mid-South, Boyd Pierce basically just introduces us to the proceedings, maybe throws it to commercial break, but does basically nothing else. He will have to carry the mail a little bit more here. But Bill Watts tells us he's enjoying his new pressurized Aerostar plane. He starts talking about the air traffic controllers strike, and then it's talking about how the air traffic controllers know his plane number by heart, and he appreciates their work helping him out.
Blair does one of my favorite things. It's where you grab a guy that has a long beard, you grab him by the beard with one hand and punch him in the face with the other hand.
Yes.
Blair ends up getting the pin with an abdominal stretch where he falls backward into a cradle.
Obscure note about that move. Brad Armstrong, when he was Fantasia / Bad Street in WCW, would use that as like a secondary finisher, and they called it the Labyrinth. Why that's stuck in my mind still, like 30 years later, I don't know. I can't remember birthdays, but I can remember that. Also, I enjoyed Bill Watts taking us on a quick trip to Fashion Corner, talking about Boyd Pierce's colorful, outlandish jackets and how much the fans enjoy each and every week, whether it be in the arena or on television, seeing what Boyd Pierce will be wearing.
We go back to the ring. It's time for our dream match. Yes, please. This lineup, this dream match put together like they've been listening to this episode, like they've been listening to this entire Wrestling at Random podcast, and they understand match, what we love.
This is like a collaboration between Wrestling at Random and another WAR, Wrestle and Romance, Genichi Tenru 6-man tag.
Yes.
You're going to tell us who the participants are in this match. If you're watching on YouTube and you see the t-shirt I'm wearing right now, you may in fact be able to tell one of the 6 competitors in this match. But I guarantee you, if you did not look up the lineup for this show, you will not be able to guess the other 5 men in this match.
No, and I'm glad you mentioned our YouTube. You can watch the video version of this podcast over at our YouTube channel. That's just go to YouTube, search for Wrestling at Random Podcast. The likes, the subscribes, we need all those to work the algorithm so other wrestling fans can find us. It's also a great place to interact with the show. We love to respond and read all of the comments. And the entire back catalog is there, video versions for the last couple of seasons. So definitely support the show over there. Here, let's run down this list of participants. Team number 1, Afa and Sika, the Wild Samoans, are teaming with the Big Cat, Ernie Ladd, who we love on this podcast. And this is 1982 Ernie Ladd here.
If there's a one-man, not a 4-man, but a one-man Mount Rushmore of Wrestling at Random and proof of concept of this podcast, it is the Big Cat, Ernie Ladd. We've been on a little bit of an Ernie Ladd run, I guess for multiple years right now, but all different time periods. We'll get a lot of Ernie Ladd throughout this show. As you mentioned, teaming with the Wild Samoans, who also one of them appeared on that Herb Abrams UWF show some 10 years later, 11 years later. But their opponents, you talk about a dream team. Bill Watts and Boyd Pierce said more than 100,000 fans voted on this match and voted to team these 3 men together. It's as if all the top promoters in North America combined to bring us this team. Shockingly, this is not from Pro Wrestling USA. Shout out to our bonus feed promoters coming together. It is the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes as the Shirt and Pals, teaming with Mid-South's own Junkyard Dog. And Jeremy, tell everybody who the 3rd member of this team is, because it's hard to believe this is real.
The Junkyard Dog, Dusty Rhodes, and Andre the Giant in 1982. What a team.
In real life.
What a
This
team.
is not Fire Pro. This is not Total Extreme Warfare. This is in real life. 1982 Dusty Rhodes, who we'll hear Bill Watts reference, or maybe it's Boyd Pierce later, will reference that at this period, Mid-South is the exclusive booking agency of Dusty Rhodes. And Bill Watts says that he anticipates that Vince McMahon, Giant Baba, Antonio Inoki, Jim Crockett, and others will be beating down his door to get dates and availability for Dusty Rhodes. Like, Dusty and Junkyard Dog alone would be a mind-blowing enough team in 1982, but Andre the Giant with them?
This is just on TV. This is just like a random TV match. You've got Ernie Ladd.
Second match on the show.
Yeah, Ernie Ladd and the Samoans taking on JYD, Andre, and Dusty. First thing I note here is JYD is jacked. Tremendous shape. I am always taken aback when I see this muscular version of the Junkyard Dog.
Yeah, this early 80s Junkyard Dog that looks more like early 90s Ron Simmons physically than the Junkyard Dog that we remember. Because even into the early days of him in the WWF, he was like powerful, but he wasn't cut and ripped with like the big neck muscles and everything. He is a monster here. It's awesome.
Yeah, in his WWF run, Dave Meltzer was already calling him the junk food dog at that point.
Yes. The other thing that's just, it's so weird to see Dusty where Dusty doesn't immediately leap off the screen as the biggest star. Like JYD is the hero of Mid-South and Andre is just this gigantic Andre the Giant. Like seeing Dusty be like at best an equal in a team like this is very jarring.
Yeah. All I can say is wow, watching these guys in the ring. And we get started as Watts runs down everybody's weight and tries to convince me that Dusty Rhodes weighs 275 here. He sure looks $3 bills to me.
Particularly in 80s wrestling weight, which is like 90s NBA where you add at least 2 inches. 80s wrestling weight, everyone gets at least 50 additional pounds. So you're not. There's no way you're telling me that Dusty's actually 225 here. I'm not buying it. He's got to be close to 300. The thing I notice immediately, like as this babyface dream team is coming in the ring, Ernie Ladd is already incredible, giving these big, dramatic, like overdone visual instructions to the Samoans on how to do a body slam. Just tremendous.
Yeah. No, he was great coaching up the Samoans. We'll see it again later.
Yes.
And yeah, coming out to the JYD comes out to Another One Bites the Dust. Everyone's up and dancing, and this team is super popular. Andre's in there with the Samoans. He's handling both of them easily. Ladd refusing to tag in with Andre. And then Andre does a drop down, gets up, does the big butt bump into Sika, and Ladd finally has to tag in. Andre shoves him off into the corner. Andre does a headlock takeover, and then
does the most rugged headlock takeover you have ever seen. This is not a pro wrestling headlock takeover. Like this is a judo takeover,
yes.
Not a judo chop, but a judo takeover here by Andre the Giant on Ernie Ladd. Everything you described leading up to this is great. It's Ernie Ladd. We talk about it, how there's maybe times here or there in Ernie Ladd's career where he's actually like wrestles like a big, scary, dominant big man. But most of the time it's that juxtaposition of Ernie Ladd, this premier athlete, major NFL star, giant of a man, wrestling like this cowardly lion of a heel. It always, always makes me laugh. And here with Andre, it's even better.
Yeah, so entertaining. And Bill Watts is running down that exact point that like Ladd is gigantic and he looks like a normal man standing next to the actually gigantic Andre.
I feel like it's when any modern wrestler stands next to Billy Gunn.
Ladd backs Andre to the corner and they're able to triple team him. They're triple teaming Andre in the heel corner until he's had enough. Andre is done, and so he walks out of the corner. But Afa has a choke on Andre from the apron. Andre is walking out of this corner to his corner, and as he's walking away, he ends up pulling Afa over the top rope because Afa's still hanging onto that choke. He's now in the ring on the back of Andre. Does not stop him as he walks all the way over and tags Dusty Rhodes in. This was great.
While fighting off Ernie Ladd as well. This is such a only Andre the Giant sort of spot. It's tremendous.
So Dusty runs wild and he tags the dog in. Dog takes Ladd over, drops a headbutt, then tags Andre back in. Andre hits a big boot to Sika. He goes for the pin, but Ladd breaks up the pin by dropping a leg across the back of Andre's head.
That huge jumping leg drop, or sometimes he does it Sabu style jumping double leg drop. It's always such a great visual because Ernie Ladd is just such a massive man.
And he can jump
with
pretty darn
massive.
high.
Oh yeah. He's a legit athlete. We then get what can only be described as a double tilt-a-whirl body slam by the Samoans on Andre the Giant here in Mid-South in 1982. This is followed up by the most hilariously entertaining standing splash you have ever seen by, you guessed it, Big Cat Ernie Ladd.
Yeah, I'm watching the Samoans do this tilt-a-whirl slam, and they are executing the plan as laid out by Ernie Ladd during the introductions. Yes. I loved it.
This is the play Ernie Ladd called about 5 minutes earlier.
Yes, we get the giant comical splash by Ladd, but only a 2 count. Breaks down where all 6 men are in the ring. Dog and Dusty dump the Samoans outside. The 3 baby faces are in the ring with Ernie Ladd. Dusty and JYD send Ladd off the ropes. They hit a double backdrop. And then Andre the Giant, who is struggling to climb up these loose ropes here at Mid-South.
Yes, there we should note this ring, the ropes are looser, I feel like, than they would be even a year or two later. And the mat is also not pulled very taut. This looks like a dangerous ring.
Andre struggles but gets to the middle turnbuckle, where he comes off the middle turnbuckle with a big splash onto Ladd to get the 3 count. This was a super fun TV 6-man.
What a spectacle this was. I enjoyed every moment of this. It's the type of thing that would not work or wouldn't necessarily get over in modern TV wrestling, but my God, did I enjoy watching this. And was this, everyone in the building loved it. Just great fun the entire time. Also, we always talk about how effective Bill Watts is as a commentator. Like, I don't know that there's ever been a better promoter, that is also the commentator in terms of getting over angles and trying to make everything make sense. He talks about how Andre the Giant is consistently he gravitates, he's drawn to Mid-South, even though it isn't his home territory, because it's the only area in the world where he and Dusty Rhodes were ever beaten as a team. I think he said at the Superdome. I don't know when this happened, but so he keeps coming back to sort of try to wash that taste out of his mouth. I want more of the 6-man team of Junkyard Dog, Dusty Rhodes, and Andre the Giant. It's a little bit better than the World 6-Man Tag Team Championship team in WCW about 9 years later of Junkyard Dog, Big Josh, and the Z-Man.
Oh, God. Yeah, I'm watching Andre in this match. He's 1982. Andre's still moving pretty good. He's bigger, but he's still moving. And it immediately made me think back to our review of early Andre, like 60s Andre, over in the bonus feed. We did a curated list from one of our patrons over there that was all matches from France, and we got to see a young Andre throwing drop kicks. And that's what I was thinking of when he was moving.
Pre-Andre the Giant, Andre Roussimoff throwing drop kicks, taking Frankensteiners in 1969. What a delight. What a strange but fun time that was. But yeah, honestly, like if Peacock had been shuttered, if the WWE network was closed down after we watched just these first 2 matches, particularly this match, this would still be a thumbs up show. But we have more, as this is only the 2nd match on this hour of professional wrestling television from Mid-South.
We go back to the ring for another match. It's Mr. Olympia, Jerry Stubbs under a mask, taking on Zapata. Stubbs wrestled in All Japan in the later 80s there, Adam.
Yeah, and here as Mr. Olympia, if you've never seen him before, like this is very early on in his run. He had a good run in Mid-South. I think they said this is the 2nd time he had been on television in the territory. Visually, he answers the question, what if a young Scott Hall wore Mr. Wrestling 2's gear? Basically
that's a great description. Yeah.
That is what he looks like. His opponent here is just Zapata. And The only thing that matters about this match, the only thing, is the story that Bill Watts goes into, which I must know everything about because this is just shade before shade existed. Bill Watts says, this man Zapata reminds me of a guy from Mississippi named the Welcher. I'm like, well, there's a masked guy called the Welcher from Mississippi? Nope. Bill Watts goes on to explain that this man's real name is Ken Zabulis, and he has been dubbed the Welcher, apparently because he just screws people over left and right. Bill Watts then talks about this man's wife and kids by name. He says they are lovely people. He says he feels sorry for this man's wife and kids. He says they must be embarrassed about this man's antics. They must be embarrassed to be related to this man. Bill Watts was looking for any reason to talk about this grudge that he had with this man, the Welcher. This was something else.
Doxing the Welcher, calling him out on Mid-South television. This was tremendous. Yeah. I don't know what, I want to know what happened.
In 1982, only one man would bring this to you, and of course it's Bill Watts. He made sure that before he had to hop on his private Aerostar plane and leave the state of Louisiana on this evening, he was going to tell us all about the Welcher.
I'm going to write that down in case we go to some sort of a meet and greet. We get to see Bill Watts in person and we get to ask him a question. The first question I'm going to say is, I want the backstory on the Welcher.
Well, I don't know if Bill Watts is still with us anymore, but if he is not,
he's got to be.
I'm sure there's a Techno Team 2000 reunion happening somewhere, and we can ask if Eric Watts, if he had any interactions as a child with the children of the Welcher.
No, Bill Watts is 84 years old and still with us.
Wow. Well, there you go.
So this match, I'd say, is what stood out about this match is just that it was a faster pace, so the speed and style is not what you'd expect for 1982. That's this is a very Mid-South kind of thing to see. These guys were moving at a faster pace. Drop kicks, arm bars from Olympia. Olympia wins with a sleeper. And honorable mention to Zapata for rolling his eyes back in his head during the sleeper. That's always a nice touch.
Zapata was great in sort of this jobber plus role. He had a green singlet. He looked disgusting, which is always a plus for men in this spot. Bill Watts accurately described a very, as he said, weird drop kick that Mr. Olympia threw. He said it was weird, like a mid-air double mule kick, and that's actually the exact correct description of what this was. Every time I see Mr. Olympia, I can't decide whether I think he's good or terrible. I've seen a lot of them, and I'm still not there yet with Jerry Stubbs under the mask.
Also good to note that Olympia did wake him up with a chop to the back after the match. Otherwise, if you don't wake up the guy you put to sleep, he will just die. So you have to do it.
The best 80s wrestling trope, and really even going back into the 70s or 60s. And you mentioned going back into the 70s or 60s. Our next match, it's a man named Tommy Wright. He's unimportant. He is taking on the Polish Prince, Ed Wiskowski, who I feel like we saw a much younger version of Ed Wiskowski on a previous episode of this podcast, whether it be in the bonus feed or here in the free feed. I can't recall.
And we've seen a much older version of him as well, because he would be the future Colonel De Beers.
Oh my God, that is right. Where they basically still the most offensive thing. Again, that covers a lot of ground on 5 seasons of Wrestling at Random, plus probably 160 episodes in the bonus feed. The most offensive thing we've ever heard on commentary of wrestling in years gone by, where I believe so the AWA 87, the Rock and Wrestling, whatever it was, the big stadium show in Minneapolis, where the announcer, I believe it was
Rod Trongard.
Rod Trongard, of course. Mm-hmm. Who else would it be? Just casually says about Colonel De Beers, he hates minorities.
Big supporter of apartheid.
Yes, his character was a colonel, ostensibly from South Africa, who likes apartheid and hates minorities. In case you were wondering what professional wrestling was like in the 80s, Here, visually, he may be even more disgusting than that description. He looks older than he would look years later as Colonel De Beers. He's this rugged heel. Everything he does looks odd and terrible. He's got like kind of like a balding, not a mole, like balding, short but long hair. And for some reason, he's wearing gear which probably would be more befitting of the Patriot Del Wilkes.
Yeah, not the Polish Prince, that's for sure.
No, I don't understand anything about the visual presentation of the Polish Prince here whatsoever.
I don't understand the in-ring presentation either, as this was just very punch-kicky. The AWA, a much better territory for him than Mid-South.
Yes.
This style did not look in. It looked completely out of place from what we've seen so far in this show.
I don't know what state Ed Wiskowski is from, but the best way I could describe him visually here is the personification of the state of Wisconsin.
The match was the match ended when Wiskowski wins with a backbreaker. The only thing to note from Tommy Wright was he did throw one awesome looking punch, but it was completely no-sold by Wiskowski and then hit the backbreaker for the win.
My notes say Tommy Wright threw, and it was just one of them.
One punch.
The hardest punch I've ever seen in the history of professional wrestling. Yuki Ishikawa and Daisuke Ikeda would say, "Hold back. Don't punch so hard." It looked like instant death, and the Polish Prince completely no-sold it.
We go back to the ring. Bob Roop versus Dick Murdoch. And I'm immediately saying, is Bob Roop a babyface here? He's wearing the red, white, and blue. He's taking on Dick Murdoch. I'm like, what am I about to watch? And the match begins where both men are just trading headlocks and back elbows. They're squaring up like they're going to fist fight. And then Murdoch starts showing off his boxing footwork, doing a little dance. And I'm like, okay, I think Dick Murdoch's the babyface.
No, he 100% is, which, like you said, the All-American gear of Bob Roop, combined with Dick Murdoch being Dick Murdoch, you would not necessarily think that Dick would be the babyface. He is. It's noteworthy as always that Dick Murdoch looks no older than he did in 1974 and no younger than he would in 1993 at Slamboree for WCW.
95.
His age, 95. His age is Dick Murdoch. Always.
It's
the
amazing.
Most incredible thing about this match is the multiple kip-ups out of hair pull takedowns by Dick Murdoch. You forget, because of the beer belly, just the look, the promos, Dick Murdoch was one hell of an athlete.
Yeah, and he would not be doing kip-ups as the rugged heel Dick Murdoch you're used to seeing him in 90% of the things. Here, he's a babyface doing a kip-up out of headlocks and getting taken down. Yeah, this is wild. Dick Murdoch as a babyface is so weird. And
it's very... It to me was on that same level of weird as when on the bonus feed we had the whole show was us reviewing the 60-minute draw between Nick Bockwinkel and Kurt Hennig.
Yes.
And Nick Bockwinkel as the valiant babyface was so odd. He was great at it, but it's just not what you associate him with whatsoever.
No, and Murdoch was totally good in this role that he was expected to play here, which was...
he was awesome. I mean, and again, like, there are only certain areas of the country in which Dick Murdoch can be a babyface. And the Mid-South region would certainly be one of those areas.
Yeah, Murdoch fights back from his knees with punches, makes his babyface comeback, drops a big elbow. Murdoch goes for the brainbuster, but Paul Orndorff trips Murdoch from the outside. Orndorff gets on the apron now to distract Murdoch. Roop tries a roll-up, but Murdoch kicks him off, sending Roop into Orndorff. Murdoch gets the cover. Orndorff hits the ring and attacks Murdoch. They're double teaming him until Ted DiBiase hits the ring to chase off Orndorff and Bob Roop. He chases him out of there. Dick Murdoch is your winner by disqualification.
That ending sequence was even better than you described, in that as part of it, you talked about the trip, and then Murdoch gets whipped into the ropes again. Orndorff goes for the trip from the floor again. Murdoch sees him and does like a little hop, like a little jump as he hits the ropes to jump over the legs. Then there's that roll up, and right as Orndorff is getting in the ring to interfere, Murdoch kicks off Roop and shoves him into Orndorff. This was great. This also is playing off of what happened on last week's show, the dream match that was voted on by the fans, which was Orndorff against Ted DiBiase for the North American title. Bill Watts and Boyd Pierce tried multiple times to explain how it was possible that Paul Orndorff won and then lost the North American title in the span of 60 seconds. They did not do a good job. It's maybe the only time I've ever heard Bill Watts fail at explaining something that happened on a previous week's show. I do not understand how that happened, but if it was as entertaining as the last 45 seconds of this match, I wouldn't mind seeing it.
Something that I don't mind seeing ever, and I want to see more of it. It's when Ernie Ladd comes out to cut a promo, and Ernie Ladd is here. He joins Boyd Pierce at the desk, and I'm not going to recap it. I'm going to let you hear the big cat Ernie Ladd.
I'm not leaving, and you can't make me leave. Let me tell you something, Boyd Pierce. I'm taking this part of time. I don't care what Mid-South do. I say I've been suspended once. I can be suspended again. I don't care. I'm fed up. Andre the Giant, the dumb giant, Billy Rhodes, they broke every rule in the book. We got ripped right off. That's robbery. That's robbery. What more can I tell you? What more can I tell you? That's robbery. That's robbery. They broke every rule in the book. They in the ring, 3 of them at a time, and all 3 of them pile up on me. They all threw up in the air like a big bag of wind or whatever. I'm sick and tired. And don't look at the ring. Don't look at the ring. Yes, Alpha and sick in the ring. Don't tell me that they're not supposed to wrestle. I bought their contracts, and we're going to improve this point right now. We're going to hurt somebody, and we're going to hurt everybody. See, Junkyard Dog was responsible for this, and anybody that is friend, I'm serving warning on him now. If it's Andre the Giant, I'm going to hurt him. If it's Dirty Rhodes, I'm going to hurt him. If it's his partner, Mike George, I'm going to hurt him. Anybody that crossed my trail, I'm going to hurt him. Until I get that dog, I'm going to get even, and I'm going out here and show you how it's done right now. And don't say nothing. I don't want to hear nothing.
Well, there you have it. Much as surprise.
That's robbery, he says. He called Dusty Rhodes Dirty Rhodes. Loved it.
Which is great because there also was a Dirty Rhodes who we'd see in other promotions. One of the many fake Dusty Rhodes. That's not what he was referring to here. Tremendous stuff. We go to the ring. It was going to be whoever the 2 men were whose contracts Ernie Ladd bought to get the Samoans another match on this show. Their opponents were going to be Frank Monty, who has, you talk about quick fashion corner.
Yes, I have it noted here as well.
He is wearing brown tights, and it's wearing a brown velvet entrance jacket, which I can't figure out whether it's beautiful or disgusting. I went with both. It was the final analysis. I was both disgusted and highly intrigued. His partner, you talk about this show being, an all-star team of people who we've loved or have at least come up over and over and over again in discussion in future episodes of this podcast. Frank Monty's partner is the man who on an episode of this podcast stood across from Ric Flair on a Florida Championship Wrestling show, displaying the Gulf Canyon or Grand Canyon sized gulf in charisma between 2 professional wrestlers. It is Jesse Barr making an appearance here on the show.
Before we move on from Frank Monte's gear, I did want to just call out how he has no knee pads on, short brown tights, and short brown tights are just always hideous. They're especially hideous on a jobber, and I thought it was tremendous. I will say, yes, this is just a great look.
This is how men who were born to lose should look.
The Samoans destroy Monty. Monty escapes by ducking through the legs of Sika to make the tag to Barr. Jesse Barr comes into the ring with a terrible-looking over-the-top rope drop kick into the ring. And then Sika chops Barr, knocking him out of the air.
Well, Barr goes for like a flying cross body off the ropes, like off an Irish whip, and just gets chopped directly out of midair. This is tremendous. Also, Jesse Barr is basically wearing WCW Lord Steven Regal tights, which I was not expecting. The blue tights with the red trim sticking out of the top. Those tights are the most charisma Jesse Barr has ever had.
Afa wins with a Samoan drop, and we get to see the Samoans and Ernie Ladd celebrate after the match. We go back to the ring. Bob Orton Jr. taking on Mike George.
Two more men who have been featured prominently on this podcast. Bob Orton Jr., who we've seen a ton of times, whether it be on Saturday Night's Main Event or again in Herb Abrams' UWF teaming with Cactus Jack, against Mike George. Do you remember what the name of the promotion was? I don't, but I believe it was on the bonus feed where Mike George, it was like a late